Brew Strong is brought to you by morebeer.com, where a man can brew like a man.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. Back with another episode of Brew Strong. I'm here in the studio with my good buddy John Rock Palmer and Mike Tasty McDole. Hey. And I'm Jamil Zainasheff, and this is Brew Strong. And, you know what's funny is we were all just at the long shot competition over the weekend, and several times, somebody in the distance yells out, "Hey, howdy, hey!"
Giving you the salute, huh?
And I'm like, I really didn't intend for that to
be your catchphrase.
Yeah. Well, and, it comes from like a Disney song, and that my daughter really liked some years ago. We've been doing this for coming on 4 years,
right.
and something my daughter likes. So I don't know. I told her I'd say it on the radio one time, and then I just kept going, and because she was asking me if I was still saying it. So to this day, I still am.
Right. You don't have to do it live anymore. We got it recorded so many times we could just play it.
Right.
For you.
Yeah. I could just I don't need to embarrass myself anymore. But speaking of which,
embarrassing yourself.
It's good for your skin, for your face. Yeah. Helps keep it healthy looking.
What? Mike, you're looking real healthy this morning.
Yeah, you mean that facetiously, I think.
Did you?
This homebrew competition is like you're judging it. Well, I don't judge, but I cellar. You're there working all day, and in the cellar we got ample beer to drink, and so we're drinking beer. And then when the competition, the judging's over, you
go to
bars and drink more bear, and oh my god, it's like a 12, 13 hours of drinking.
It looks like you came out of a coffin this morning.
I'm a little swollen. Are my eyes open? I can hardly see out these slits.
I was going to say, go ahead and open your eyes.
Yeah, right.
You need another cookie.
Yeah. Well, and it's a great time, and I think the reason we all go out and have a few beers after the competition's over because it's a whole bunch of friends.
You're in good company.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, it's like the homebrew conference, the National Homebrew Conference. You see people from all over the country, all over the world that have come in for the conference that you don't get to see but once a year at the conference.
And then all the new people you just meet, you definitely have something in common with every one of them. You're all homebrewers.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just a great old time.
Yeah, nothing to do but sit down and have a beer with them and talk a little bit.
If you can speak,
yes,
then you would talk. Yeah. And usually John's a little more capable of enunciating.
But I was out at Barclays and the Trappist last night too. So a good night was had by all.
Yeah, although you and I were quite responsible. We only had a couple of beers, and we knew we needed to be on the radio today. Yeah. And for credit to Tasty, he was here.
I showed up.
He wasn't gonna.
I'm just a shell of a man, though. Here.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's the topic? Oh.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about filtering.
Oh, perfect.
And filtering is an interesting subject, and not everyone does it. And I think there's people who argue on one side or the other whether it helps or hurts. And I know award-winning brewers who are both sides of the fence. Right. And for me, I haven't been. I've filtered a few times, but I really haven't been filtering because I'm just damn lazy. So, why don't you start us off, Micah? Well, first off, I'll define filtering beer. How about that? It's moving your beer through a medium of some kind to remove something in the beer that you don't want in there afterwards, and that might be for clarity or whatever it might be. So, why don't you go into those reasons for us? Why would I want to filter beer?
Well, I'll speak as to why I filter beer. I would say about 80% of the beer that I make is served, away from my brewery. Generally packing up, 5-gallon kegs or 2.5-gallon kegs of beer, and I take it out and I want to, dispense it to people. And if I don't filter it, I'm always carrying around this, bunch of yeast in the bottom and sediment that just gets stirred up. So when I get to the venue where I'm, sharing the beer, which I love to do, I have a bunch of cloudy beer, and I really, want everybody to appreciate the beer the way I get to appreciate it at home. So, so I generally filter things. Just really, that's the primary reason. What I do is when I rack my beer to kegs, I put it in a cold storage for a week before I filter it. Mm-hmm. If I just took that same keg and another clean, sanitized keg and just, threw the first 2 pints away or drank them, and then transferred the rest of that clean keg, I'd probably be, pretty good shape as far as clarity. Because I have that other clean keg and I have the filter, I can take it a step further and make a truly transportable and really well-conditioned beer. Because in my theory is that what you're filtering out of the beer is the stuff that would just
settle out
naturally through gravity.
Because you can taste yeast, and you can taste a lot of the fines that might be in beer that take a long time to settle out as dust.
Polyphenols that can have a rough edge to the beer. The yeast, you get green beer flavors. I mean, young beer flavors. You let those settle out, or if you filter them out, then you clean up the flavor of the beer quite.
Well, and speaking on green beer, generally, they talk about acetaldehyde and kind of that green apple flavor and the young beer flavor, and in order to remove that, you need the yeast. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
But if you're a week into it in the cooler and you've been letting it settle, and you still have green apple flavor, it's probably too late. You should have left the beer warmer at the end of fermentation for a little longer.
Right. Yeah. Fermentation wasn't
take care of that.
But I mean, when you know that you've got fermentation finished, and the yeast just don't want to flocculate, they don't want to settle out, or you can see that you've got haze in the beer from polyphenols or whatever, but your fermentation is finished. It's had enough time. Then filtering is a good way to clean that up.
Because filtering won't remove acetaldehyde or any of that. No. Right. Those compounds are just going to pass right through the filter. You'll still have them. So it's not going to fix that kind of green beer problem. But I think, my understanding is, even if the bulk of your yeast settles out and it looks like it's clear, there's still quite a bit of yeast floating around in there, and you can actually taste that.
Yeah.
And if you give it a little more time, if you let that sit for like another month, then the flavor improves. Why does it improve? Well, like you guys are saying, that yeast and then the polyphenols and any of that other stuff, proteins maybe, all that stuff is settled out, and that's improved the flavor. But what you're telling me is you can accelerate that process if you don't want to wait 6 weeks. You could filter it, and it takes you a few minutes, right?
Yeah, I can have pint 1 taste exactly like pint number 40 because a lot of times what you do is your beer gets better over time because you're conditioning it over time. So it's kind of frustrating as a home brewer, and people tell me this all the time. The last half of the keg is just phenomenal. They don't remember the first half being as good. It's because the beer is conditioned. That is, it's cleared up.
Well, I'll let my beer stay in the fermenter until I'm sure fermentation's done. The yeast is dropped. It looks brilliantly clear as far as I can tell. Right. And then keg it or whatever, and then. It'll sit a month in the keg, and then I'll have a few pints, and then I'll bottle up what's left over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when I'm bottling, it looks brilliantly clear. I don't see anything in it. But you let that sit for 6 months. You pour that beer out, and you see a fine film of sediment on the bottom. And that's again, something you could filter out.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, filtering is not all. It's another transfer. It's another potential place to mess up your beer. So it's not when you take it on, you got to make sure that you're taking on another level of
that you're doing it properly.
Sophistication and sanitation and trying to keep oxygen on your beer. It's really important, and you could really mess that up during filtering.
Yeah, I guess one point to make is that filtering isn't necessary to have great beer.
No, not
it is.
Absolutely not.
It is one path to a good beer. You can you can filter it if you need it soon, or you can let it sit.
Yeah, I do a lot of like recipe manipulation in terms of like fine adjustments. So if I filter, I think I can get to the essence of the beer a little bit easier. Because sometimes, like for instance, like yeast will hold the hop flavor, right? So if I've got yeast in suspension, I'm not really getting an accurate, sensory evaluation of how hoppy this beer really is, because I got all these hop solids, if you will, tagging along with the yeast. But if I filter that out, then I can essentially compare one batch to the other, because it's not a function of how much yeast is up in the year.
And how much time's gone by. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, the other thing that is commonly said against filtering, besides the complexity or cost or possibility of screwing your beer up.
Exactly.
Although we'll cover that, and you'll tell us how to do it without any sort of problem, right?
Well, yes. No guarantees,
Okay.
I'm not going to come over and do it for you.
But the thing is, does filtering potentially remove too much of the flavor of a beer? Are you stripping out hop compounds? Are you stripping out stuff that you do want in the beer? Is that really affecting it?
Well, like I say, the solids that you're filtering out, things are attached to those solids. Whether it be a protein or a yeast particle, there's flavors attached to that. And I don't necessarily feel those are flavors that are good for the beer, but some actually add character to the beer. But if I make a beer and I filter it, then I taste it, and then of course if I put it in front of good palates like you guys, and you say the beer lacks this or lacks that, then I just go to the recipe and make an adjustment.
Yeah, so you drive
built
that
in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's a recipe issue. If filtering removes body, well then I take a look at my mash temperature. If it removes some hoppiness, then I up the IBUs. So it's just a recipe issue. It's not
okay. So
the flavor is gone. It's flavor I can put right back into the recipe.
So it does affect the flavor of the beer, right?
It has to some degree, whether it's major or minor. I don't know.
Even affects color. I've seen
color, sure.
some information where filtering reduces color by X number of SRM,
sure.
and depending on the color of the beer, and
same there.
And
if
also,
the color's not right, I just add more.
Reduces bittering, reduces, so, a lot of the production breweries, they have to kind of deal with this, and some of them, they deal with the hop extracts in order to, and they'll extract it, add the extract after filtering, I guess, or,
sure.
just to dial it in and not waste extract, and, have it stripped out in the filtering.
More consistent product.
Right. And but you're saying, okay, it's going to remove some stuff that maybe you want in there, but it's a recipe adjustment.
Exactly.
In the first place, you had to design your recipe to give you a certain flavor.
Yeah.
If filtering is part of your process,
exactly,
you're just going to need to design your recipe with filtering in mind, and either. So essentially, we should do one or the other. Filter or not filter. Then.
Right.
Yeah.
What I've always been mean to do is, because I make 10-gallon batches, so I have 5 gallons of beer, 2 5-gallon kegs. What I should do, and I never seem to do, is just filter one and not filter the other, and then
bring them in
to get guys like you with a good palate,
tasting and say which one we like,
which one you would like the best, or which one does it seem muddled or not muddled or crisper or whatever the differences might be.
You should probably do it without looking at it.
We could do the not looking thing, like we do on the other show. The Can You Brew It?
Yeah.
Well, don't even see what the beer in the glass.
Yes. We'll do it. Blind tasting.
Blind tasting. Truly
like
blind
me today
tasting.
with my eyes closed. Yeah.
Right.
Another reason I
careful what you pick up.
I filter is I often find myself comparing my beers to the commercial beers that are. So part of the comparison obviously is how it looks, and so I can detect if my color is exactly like the commercial beer color by because it's filtered and they have the same clarity to begin with. And then, the flavor, I think, is often affected by, how much haze is in the beer. A lot of the craft brewers are not filtering, which is fine, except that a lot of them look like they need to. Right. I mean, it's like, I'm okay with a little haze in a beer, but, some of these are coming off, like, pretty thick with a lot of stuff that, I know it's not... I really don't. I'm not a big protein shake guy.
Looks like the public pool
after
after Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, there's things attached to those particles, and they're obviously adding to the flavor and the texture of the beer.
Well, and I would still say that the majority of craft brewed beer, professionally brewed beer, is brilliantly clear, and it's filtered and
filter fined or centrifuged or whatever.
Right. And they might add back yeast, like somebody like Sierra Nevada.
Yeah.
They'll filter it and remove all yeast, and then they add back the appropriate amount of yeast for bottling.
Right.
And so they may be naturally bottled, but it's because they're adding back yeast after the filtering process, which
and
I
again,
feel is very
it's all
important.
in terms of it's all a drive for consistency, batch to batch.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a short break, and when we come back, we can get into what kind of equipment you need in order to do some filtering. Huh? Back after this.
Brew smart. Brew strong. This is Brew Strong.
Look at you, brewing on this fine summer day.
Sun's out, the kids are having fun, and I just got my shipment for more beer.
But aren't you going to run into temp control issues with your ferment? Those yeast are going to fry.
Normally I would, but this is temperature control month at More Beer, and they're having a huge sale on all sorts of products to help me keep my beer cool while the yeast do their thing.
Really?
Yeah, like these things here. With this stopper thermal well, this firm wrap carboy heater, and this temp controller for that old fridge over there, I can keep my beer at exactly the temp I want when I want. No more high ferments, no more unhappy yeast.
Man, I gotta check this stuff out.
You better hurry. The sale is only for this month.
Well, alrighty. Point me to your computer. And kegerator. I'm thirsty.
Right over there.
May is temperature control month at More Beer. Come join them for huge savings on things that you need to make beer this summer. Visit morebeer.com and click on the picture of Regan keeping cool in a swimming pool. Temperature control month, only at Beer and More Beer.
Downtown Joe's, located in the historic Oberon building in beautiful downtown Napa, California, offers an award-winning brew pub experience from 8:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. For 15 years at the corner of 2nd and Main, Downtown Joe's has been voted Best Night Spot 7 times and Best Brew Pub for the last 4 years in a row. Brewmaster Colin Kaminsky's handcrafted ales, like his Tail Wagon Amber Ale and Catherine the Great Imperial Stout, are the perfect accent to riverside dining, live music, and a relaxing outdoor patio. Don't miss the Beer of the Month, special rotating taps, and happy hour all day Mondays. Visit downtownjoes.com to make reservations, peruse their extensive calendar of events, or just read more about their fantastic beers. Come enjoy the fine beer, food, and music. Downtown Joe's, the award-winning brew pub where you'll feel at home.
White Labs, your source for maltose mowing monsters, announces the White Labs Platinum lineup for 2009. Looking for out-of-the-ordinary yeast to make the best beer possible? The Platinum strains from White Labs are only available for a limited time and make your homebrews stand out. Through February, find Australian Ale, Essex Ale, and Dusseldorf Alt yeast. March and April, it's Nottingham Ale, Abbey 4, and Mexican Lager yeast. And May through June, don't miss Premium Bitter Ale, Belgian Wit 2, and Belgian Bastogne Ale yeast. Keep up with all the great yeasts in the White Labs Platinum program at whitelabs.com, where you can also join the White Labs Customer Club. Brew with the freshest and most unique yeast with the White Labs 2009 Platinum strains. White Labs. It's all in the vial.
Hila, what's it feel like?
Take awesome and multiply it by 2.
Yeah! Spraying live beer radio all over your face.
Can't get any better than this, baby.
It's the Brewing Network. back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
Hey, we're back. We're talking filtering with Tasty McDole and John Rock Palmer. And, one of the things I wanted to mention was if you're writing vial, White Labs vial, it's V-I-A-L. Okay, it's not V-I-L-E.
That's right.
Okay, since they're one of our sponsors, V-I-A-L. That's how you spell vial. The other is the wrong type of spelling, even though your spell checker may miss that. So on the forums and stuff, V-I-A-L. And, another thing that came up during the break, as so often does, we talk about bodily functions, and it was mentioned how, a heavily yeasty beer can be like a good dose of colon blow, huh?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, yeast tears me up. I mean, especially, I love going to the NHC and the homebrew festivals and so on. But boy, you get a young beer, with a lot of yeast in it and so on. It's super colon blow later on.
I was wondering why Palmer goes missing for like every 30 minutes at those conferences.
So we're not sharing a room at the conferences here. Then that's
room fine. The can no.
GABF is all right. NHC probably not. And I think the difference is filtering, huh?
There's a lot of
it's either as we started, you either filter to get rid of the yeast, or you give it enough time in the fermenter to settle out and rack away from it. Because I drink homebrew all the time, and I have lots of great homebrews at these festivals, and usually no problem. It's the really young ones that have a lot of yeast in them that'll start setting you off.
I really would. I want to test this theory, and not because I disbelieve,
just
but
give him a big slug of Vegemite. That'll probably do it.
Drink a night of drinking Tasty's filtered beer versus a night of Chat's beer, who doesn't filter. And I'm curious. Same beer.
There's another reason for me to filter one 5-gallon keg and not filter the other. I could actually give you the same beer, and you could drink it two different nights, and
see if this does affect.
Right. So you try the filtered beer, and
we maybe blindfold on Palmer,
right,
and have him drink.
Right.
Yeah, and he doesn't know which one, and then we'll see if he explodes or not.
How long? Yeah. What's a typical fermentation time on that?
Okay, so the equipment we need is a keg of filtered beer, a keg of unfiltered beer, a tasting glass, a blindfold, and a box of adult diapers.
Yeah, we'll call it. Can you blow it?
Can you blow it?
Might be misconstrued.
Out your,
jeez.
Hi.
Colon blow. Yeah, that's a good name for a beer, actually. Okay.
Colon blow.
Somebody hands you a yeasty beer, you go, oh, colon blow. Cool.
Yeah,
thanks.
I don't think the FDA will.
Okay.
That.
I wish I could have filtered my last beer, because I brewed just
feeling it now.
You need a pen in here?
Just for the Southern California Homebrew Fest. It was a couple weeks ago. I had brewed just 2 weeks before the fest, doing a version of the West Coast Blaster from Brewing Classic Styles.
West Coast Blaster, yeah, there you go.
Wow, how appropriately named.
Yeah, a good amber ale, and but I went to rack it Thursday night before Saturday. To rack it to the keg, force carbonate it, take it to the thing. Stupid carboy was still bubbling,
and so were the people who drank it.
So I had brewed 10 gallons, and I intended to take both, but ended up only filling one keg and leaving the other in the carboy.
Right.
And so I'll probably put that in the keg maybe later tonight. It's been a couple 3 weeks. It's cleared up. The yeast has fallen, but the people that tried the beer at Fest said, "Oh yeah, it's really good." But you could taste, there was a little green yet. I mean, there's still a lot of yeast in it,
right,
and a lot of polyphenols and so on. It needed time to settle out, and so if I could have filtered that, I would have had that ready to serve.
Right. Yeah, I find myself doing that quite a bit. Is I'll do a 2-week beer. That is, I'll brew it, and in 2 weeks in a day, I'll be drinking the clear beer. It's a bit, it's a little bit of work, but what I generally wanted to make sure is that the beer is completely fermented out before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be taking the yeast off the beer when it's still got more to go. So.
Mm-hmm.
Because when somebody hands you a beer that's not fermented all the way, they're giving you yeast and unfermentables. You're going to have a really active fermentation going in there, man.
Yeah.
A real West Coast blaster.
West Coast blaster. All right. So, what's the process? What kind of equipment do I need to filter beer?
Well, I use the.
I need a kegging system to start with?
Yeah, you got to be kegging beer. You're not going to do it any other way, and you're going to have a CO2 system. There are some filtration processes where you can do it with gravity. It just takes a real long time.
Right.
Just gravity is enough to push.
Use
the beer
shorts and just pile your beer on top and wait for it to drip through.
Exactly.
Probably not going to.
Well, you get a filter, but you don't have to necessarily push it from one keg to the other with CO2. So the basic filtering process is a keg of beer, hopefully chilled and nice and cold. Pretty close to 33 to 34 degrees.
Carbonated
to get
or
those,
not carbonated?
No, flat beer. You want to filter flat beer. Now there are, commercially they filter carbonated beer. A lot of times they'll cap off the fermenters and get 3 or 4 psi of free CO2, and then they'll filter it. Then they'll force it, top it off with their bottled CO2. They have like equipment that's designed to take high pressure beer under carbonation. Everything I've seen in terms of home brewing, I mean the cartridge, the canister type filters. Some of those I've seen where they do filter carbonated beer, but
as long as
it can support the pressure.
Yeah, as long as it can handle the pressure to keep the CO2 in solution, you can do it. But if you need to drop pressure going through the filter, it's going to the CO2 is going to come out in bubbles. It's going to form larger bubbles, and it's going to stop your filtration. It's really not going to do what you're intending to do.
And I've experienced that because again, I rack my finished beer, my beer to the keg, and then I put it in cold storage for a week. That's generally my procedure. Sometimes I do it right away, but those that are in there a while, they tend, there's a little bit of lagering going on, even if it's an ale, and it is building up a little bit of CO2, and I can see that come out of solution when I do the filtering. It's only like probably 1 psi or something like that. It's never very much because the beer, is really. It was already fermented out pretty well.
And you're gonna push that beer out of one keg through the filter and then into another keg. Right,
basically.
So you need at least another keg.
You need another clean, sanitized, keg, and the same,
Any other equipment you need and little pieces, parts?
What's the filtration?
Okay,
canister?
You got a couple different choices in the middle. You can use the cartridge filters that take the canister. There's also this 6-sided, I call it, basically a wine filter that. Several of the homebrew supply stores sell.
It's like a plate filter.
Yeah, it's called a plate filter, right? And it's got like 2 round pads that go in there that do the filtering. That's what I use. I've been using that for a long time. I find it, it works out well on 10 gallons of cold conditioned beer, or 5 gallons of not cold conditioned beer. That is, you're trying to have a 13-day beer. You're going to, not going to be able to filter.
In terms of the yeast mass that you have to filter out.
Right, because it's kind of made where the more it gets clogged, it filters just as well. But at some point, it goes so slow that it's not practical.
There's only so much load that the filter will take. And the mass will start blocking all the little pores that the beer can travel through, and you get stuck. So if you spend some time letting your yeast settle out in the beer, give it a little bit of time to settle, and then filter it, you're able to filter more.
And you filter it cold because the chill haze, which you can see when the beer is cold, and you can't see when it's warm. Obviously, if you can see it, it's bigger particles, so get them while they're big, because the filter will catch it better when it's cold.
So the colder the better. You get it down to just about freezing.
Really as cold as you can get it. And I've done that before, where the night before I'm going to filter beer, I'll run it, get it down, below freezing. That is, the alcohol is keeping it from freezing.
Right. Depending on the alcohol, you can go X number of degrees below freezing and be okay.
Right.
So you're going to push it through this filter. In your case, you're using the plate filter, or there's the cartridge filters.
Right.
Now, on any of these, once I filter a beer through it, what's reusable? Do I have to throw away the pads each time, or the cartridge each time?
The system I use, the pads, are thrown away.
Okay.
There are filters you can get for the cartridges that you clean. Of course, cleaning is a relative term. How clean are you getting it?
Right.
I think you have to use a lye solution to get those clean. You can physically knock the yeast out of it, but I wouldn't be. Yeah. I think you'd have to get into caustics to really to get that. I mean, think about it. Next time you're going to use it, you're going to run some of your fine beer through there, and it's it's still vulnerable. It's of course it's got some alcohol, so it's not it's not like wort or anything like that. But you want to make sure that when you run your other beer through that filter, that you've got really clean and
you don't want to transfer mold into the beer.
Right. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll run sanitizer through their filtering system before they filter their beer.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How do you sanitize? How do you get all set up, and how do you get everything sanitized so you're sure that you're not adding contaminants of some kind to your beer and making it worse? How do you ensure against that?
All right. Well, what I do, and with what other people, with the alternate is to do a little bit more than that. Is I'll clean and sanitize the canister and my plate filter basically. I'll send all the lines. I'll run sanitizer, through that, and then I'll lock off the loose sanitizer, get everything out of the lines. Then I'll add the pads. So I'm giving the pads the benefit of the doubt that they're at least clean. Sure, they're not sanitized, and I'm not running sanitizer through them, but I'm letting the alcohol in the beer protect me from that side, and I don't think I've had any problem. Now, some people run sanitizer right through with the cartridge and or filter pads right in there. I don't know, I'm not too comfortable with doing that. Of course,
I suppose if you're sure that it's pushing all the liquid out.
Yeah.
When you run the beer through, you only just toss a little bit of beer, and then it should be just fine after that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So when you do that, instead of running the first pint of beer into the target keg, run that into your dump bucket.
Well, and here's one question. What about filter sizes? Now they got 5 micron, 10 micron, 3 micron, 2 micron, 1 micron. Why would you use a different micron filter? What are each designed for? Is if I want to sterile filter my beer, I've heard of that. Is that possible to do on the homebrew level? Or can you not push hard enough? Or do you do multi-step filtering? Should you do a rough filter first and then go to a finer filter? If you're going with a real fine filter, you getting all plugged up real quick? A lot of questions on filter sizes.
Yeah, what I found, and I'm not surprised I found this, is that if you want to do a fine filtration, the beer has to be, very well conditioned, very, very cold, and to do like approaching sterile, which I think is 1 micron or half micron, would be like about as good as we could do as home brewer.
Yeah, and that's to get the haze out. You've already taken the yeast out.
Yeah, right. You've already had either dropped out physically through cold storage. Occasionally I always use like 7 micron filtration for all the beers I do, and I've had brilliantly clear lagers, and of course all the ales come out fine. But then occasionally I'll get a haze in a lager for some reason, and of course I immediately go back and think about process and mash temperatures and how that went, because that's a problem. I shouldn't have a haze after 7 micron filtration. But when I do, then I go do another filtration like at 3 micron, and then that cleans it up.
And this plate filter you use, there's different pads.
Yeah, different pads. Right. So I usually I keep a big stack of 7 micron around because that's just my base filtration, and I got some backup pads that are 3 micron that I pull out when I've got to do another another filter, which is pain in the neck because you got to clean another keg and that kind of thing. If it's only if I'm that beer is probably filtered clear enough for my purposes, which is to take it around and not worry about yeast getting stirred up.
Right.
But if it's for like a competition, then I would typically do another filtration.
So let's say you go to our sponsor morebeer.com.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can find this filtration system there.
Yes.
What are people looking at for the equipment to get to? Let's say you already got a kegging set up.
Right.
What's the cost of a filtering system, and what are the costs of the consumables like these pads?
All right. Right. Well, the 6-sided plate filter that I use, I think it costs like I think it's $50, but that's without any of the tubing, the quick disconnect. So with the tubing and clamps and disconnects, it's about I think $70 or something like that. And then the pads, I think they run about $2 a piece, so it'd be about $4 to filter
batch.
10 gallons of so
it takes 2 pads each time.
Each
you
time,
use
right?
It.
It's a two-sided kind of deal. So
It's
basically,
not
so basically, it's a flat filter, and it's got enough room to hold about 12 ounces of beer in it. You're just pushing beer in one side, and it's got to go through the filters to get out.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about something? I think one of the reasons people give for pushing sanitizer through their filter first or sterile water is that it eliminates oxidation that could occur if you're pushing beer through an empty filter. Is that true? Or?
Yeah. Well, when after I run the sanitizer and get it all off and put the pads in, then I flush the whole system with CO2 before I start pushing beer through there. I don't want to push a whole big batch of oxygen into my the target tank. That would be like a bad thing to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So a lot of people forget to do that step or don't think to do it, and it's really pretty important because again, every time you do any sort of transfer of beer, you're subjecting it to some problems. So you got to be extra careful.
And what sort of so you have your beer. And you've got it cold. You let it settle for say a week to drop out the bulk of the yeast.
Right.
You're going to use a 7-micron filtration or maybe a 5-micron filtration, kind of fairly rough filtration, I guess, but fine enough to really polish it up.
Yeah, most beers look good.
And then you're going to have it real cold. You're going to run sanitizer through there, and then you prefer to push the sanitizer out with CO2 before you run your beer in. Right. And then
run some beer out.
You run a little bit of beer out and discard that, and then you hook up to your next keg and run it in there. Right. And you run these out of the you're coming out of the beer out on one keg.
Yeah, it's like 2 beer out connectors, right?
And you're going into the beer out on your second
exactly
keg.
2 black connectors.
So it's gently laid in on the bottom, and you flush that with CO2 as well.
It's absolutely a flush keg, right?
Okay, okay. And what kind of pressure are you using to push the beer? Can you use too much pressure or too little? Or?
I don't. In my plate filter, it doesn't seem to make any difference. I normally do it about 5 psi. So I'm doing, again, 2 5-gallon kegs. The first one takes about 15 to 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. The second one, again, this is normal. This is the average. Takes like 30 minutes, a little bit more sometimes, because again, it's getting more clogged up as it goes. And you think about a graph, it's just going to take longer because there's more. It's getting more clogged up as you go along.
Mm-hmm. And is this a set it and forget it? You start it going and you go and have a beer, or is there a possibility of leaks?
Yeah, well, again, you got it's an open transfer. The beer's not going to go into the target keg unless you're releasing the pressure on it. Mm-hmm. That means you've got something open, right? Whether it be the pressure relief valve or. Mm-hmm. Well, that's all I really need to do. You can crack the lid a little bit, but you. One of the rules is you can't leave the room when you're filtering, and I know that from experience. I've come back to the garage after I watched an episode of Lost or something and forgot that I was filtering beer just to come out and see
the beer was lost
all over the beer was lost. All over the floor, just a bunch of foam, right? Because you're pushing CO2 into the bottom once they're going out of source beer, and it's just
and you had left the top
open, it all comes out.
And then one of the things that you'll find from I guess it was the head retention show, maybe, is that if you bubble CO2 through your beer a long time, you're those head forming proteins, they form only once, they get used up,
they break up,
and then you end up even if you didn't lose the beer, you'd end up with something that never formed a head, and kind of makes it weird.
Right. So now I added another feature to my thing. I have got these little $29 leak detector things. Like if it gets wet, this alarm goes off. Mm-hmm. So I just put that on top of the target keg, or the target keg, so that if. So
you are leaving the room. You said no, you can't leave the room.
Well,
you're just describing all the times you've been leaving the room.
I can't preach like, oh yeah, you can go out, 7 o'clock, come back, it'll be. Don't worry about it. I know you have to worry because I've lost a lot of beer. I mean, if people would have lost as much beer as I had, they would not leave the room. So I'm just telling them where they need to be. Sure,
but you still leave the room.
I do leave the room because come on, 30 minutes I could do, Well,
you could rub one out in 30 minutes. Yeah.
Well, one less. Yeah, right. So, there's things to do. So, I have to leave the door open so I can hear the alarm if it goes off. It's, it has saved me many, many times. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
It's like $30.
That's a good tip. That's a good tip
and speaking of tips, I have a sheet that I send to people that, email me about filtering that's got, like, some tips about filtering and that kind of thing, if anybody wants that.
Yeah.
We should post
email me.
Did you bring that with you today?
No, I don't travel with that, no.
Do you have it in your mind?
Well, yeah, we've covered most of it.
So we can get you to hit.
Yeah. These are pretty much what's in that sheet.
Any remaining ideas there? All right. So why don't we take a short break and we come back? I've got a question about finings and the whole effect on filtering of finings, and then maybe you can give us some more tips off your sheet there.
Okay.
All right. Back after this.
Keep your carboy cap on. This is Brew Strong. We'll be right back.
In the past year, the Brewing Network has been able to add 2 new shows, expand our studio capabilities and quality, and bring more beer information home to you than ever before. In no small part, this is due to subscribers like you. Thank you from all of us at the Brewing Network. Without your monthly support of any denomination, we could not bring you the very best in live beer radio like Can You Brew It, Brew Strong, and the Sunday Session. Haven't signed up yet? Join your fellow brewers in the BN Army. Sign up today at thebrewingnetwork.com for a recurring donation as little as $2 a month. Besides all the great live radio you'll support, every subscriber is automatically entered in monthly raffles for amazing brew gear like a conical fermenter, a temperature control system, or your own draft setup. Become a part of the BN Army today.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines, so I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 9 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew Free or Die IPA throughout California and Alaska.
And now it's also available on draft at select accounts in the Bay Area.
So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in a can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack cans.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
Been disgusting. I mean, what's disgusting? Well, I guess we got into the colon blow and all that thing. Kind of got disgusting.
Yeah, we got to change your image a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah.
We're talking about ass way too much on this show.
Well, not on this show.
Oh yeah.
More on the,
I had a beer yesterday.
Can You Brew It and the Sunday Session, and definitely on that other show. I think that's all they talk about is ass. If it doesn't have to really to ass, they
starts with that and ends with that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Oh, it was I had yesterday when we were judging. I had a beer that
tasted like ass.
Yeah, it tastes like goat hair. Actually, it was.
Oh, it's a little bit worse than ass.
Yeah, it was definitely a Brett infection.
What I want to know is, why you know what goat hair tastes like. Why are you biting a goat? What the goat hair is like. I mean, what are you doing with the goat that your mouth needs to touch the goat's hair?
Well, I can only think of one thing.
Yeah,
milking.
Milking. Yeah, you put it in a glass first, then you drink the milk.
But okay, maybe in your family, yeah.
The passion of the goat, yes. A lot of goat going on in these shows. I don't know why.
Bestiality, we'll cover that on the other show.
Yeah, that's, again, for Love Strong.
Yeah.
We'll be covering bestiality.
Right.
Next Love Strong episode, bestiality. Don't miss it. All right, so a couple of questions here for you. as far as finings, now you add a kettle fining, right? When you're brewing, so that might be an Irish moss or a Whirlflock tablet or something along those lines, right?
Those are all carrageen. Yeah.
Okay, and then should you add some sort of finings to your beer before you filter it? I've heard that would increase the effectivity of the filtering. That essentially ensures picking up a lot of those real fine particles without going with a real fine filter pad. But does it clog it easier? Or
you could do it. I mean, there's the different finings have or affect different kinds of particles. I mean, you've got your Irish moss, which is a protein coagulator. And the carrageen helps the proteins in the boil coagulate and settle out. You've got isinglass, which is again a protein attractant and helps the yeast flocculate out. There's gelatin, which again helps the yeast come together and flocculate out. Silica gel is let me think. Yeah, silica gel is a protein attractant, helps binds the proteins, help them settle out. PVPP is a polyphenol attractor and helps the polyphenols bind and settle out. So, and especially when you get into the polyphenols, I mean, you're in some of these proteins that cause haze. If you're trying to, filter that out, you'd be better off adding these finings to the keg and letting those finings do their job and
let it settle out completely, so you're not running your finings through your filter.
Yeah, because then you could, and those wouldn't affect the yeast as much. You could go with your 7-micron filter, which has a good, throughput. I mean, in terms of flow speed. And then you could use that 7-micron filter and get a brilliantly clear beer because you've left the bulk of your haze in the keg ahead of time.
Okay. Now, what about pressures when you're doing this? You talked about like 5 psi. Right. What's the are these filters rated with a certain limit? One type of filter can hold more pressure than another.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a danger. I know the canister cartridge filter systems can take quite a bit of pressure. They're rated quite high. If you've ever seen them, most people have them for their water filter, for their carbon filter. But
so they can handle
it's that same unit, and it can
60 psi.
Yeah, it's a really
house
thick
pressure.
Yeah,
is.
a lot of it handles that much. Water pressure, which is sometimes as high as 60. So it's CO2 pressure. It's going to be up in that same range. I would guess. Now the plate filter, that's not rated that much. Sometimes I'll run it as high as 10 psi. I get maybe up to 11 or 12. I might get a little bit of leakage, but I would say that I filter a zillion batches a year, and I imagine 9 out of 10 times I get no leakage of any beer whatsoever. There's not a drop spilled. I could just set it on the kitchen floor, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. Once in a while, again, especially if I have like a clogging issue into the second 5-gallon keg. I turning up the pressure to get it to move along a little bit more, and I don't notice any difference in the filtering. Like you think, well, if you're running the first keg at 5 psi and the second one at like 10, maybe the clarity is going to be different because you're doing it faster. Never have noticed any difference.
Well, because there's no attraction going on.
Yeah,
it's just really forcing it through a sieve, essentially, and certain parts get stuck and they're too big to go through, and other parts just pass right through. So pressure, you might drive some slightly larger pieces that are on borderline may pass through under a higher flow rate.
Right.
But as long as the flow rate remains the same, pressure shouldn't.
The only time pressure would be an issue is in case of both filter types, is that if you run it up high and you might blow past the gasket, if you will, that's keeping the beer into the right path instead of bypassing your filter. So that would be the only consideration is what the gaskets hold up.
Whatever kind of tubing you're using and tubing connectors, it's only going to be as strong as the weakest link. So if you hard plumb a water filter designed for 100 psi into a house, you're okay there. If you hook up a little bit of thin wall vinyl tubing with a hose clamp, you're probably going to have an explosion and kill yourself with one of those pieces of tubing. So you want to be kind of careful.
Blow your beer all over the place.
Total pressure you use.
Right.
All right, so this show's done live. Thanks to our great sponsors like Downtown Joe's, www.downtownjoes.com. Let them know that you heard us and you appreciate them sponsoring us. Go down to Downtown Joe's in downtown Nepas.
Yeah.
Say hi
Great
to them.
beer, great
have
food.
A beer. Yeah.
Great company.
And great service. I love that place. And, or just drop them an email. info@downtownjoes.com and say, hey, thanks for sponsoring the show. Same thing for More Beer. Good folks and good products, good prices. And that brings me to the whole live chat. And you can listen to these shows live. As a matter of fact, we're going to do a live question and answer show coming up right after this where you can ask all your questions, and that's the whole show. We'll be answering them all as you go. You can do it in the chat room, or you can actually call in on the toll-free beer line there, and that should be great. And what do we got in the chat room today for filtering?
Few questions. Let me just add to the Downtown Joe's thing, too. You get a BN Army discount if you go in on beer. I do believe it's 10%. Wear your BN Army gear. Get money off your beer.
You already went to the Brewing Network store, picked up a cool Hop Grenade shirt like I'm wearing.
It's going to pay for itself.
Or a Brew Strong shirt like Tasty McDole is wearing. Or probably even a hat will work, right?
Hat will work just fine.
Sweet BN Army hat with the grenade on it. Those are nice. Yeah. And cover up that giant ugly melon you have.
Yeah.
And you get yourself a discount. Hat will pay for itself. One night of drinking.
Right. Drink fast.
You'll 10%. You'll pay for a hat. No problems.
All right. Some questions about filtering. Here's a good one for you, Tasty. If your plate filter takes 2 pads, can you put one coarse and one fine filter in at once? Is it any more or less efficient that way?
I don't know. Efficiency, I don't know. I have to answer a different question. The question would be, what effect would that have? Well, to me, the effect would be that, you're putting a constant pressure to the inside of the filter. So, I would have guessed that more of the beer is going to go through the 5-micron side versus the 3-micron side just because of the resistance of the 3-micron. But it's going to go through both sides. I mean, there's more pressure on the inside than on the outside. Obviously, that's why it makes the beer move. Well, so, I mean, you're going to have sort of a combination kind of a filtering thing.
And eventually it'll path of least resistance, like you were saying earlier, it'll go through there on the 5-micron side until it loads up, and then probably you'll get beer through the 3-micron side as well.
Right. Yeah, we should explain how the plate filter works, because what you do is you have a chamber where the beer is fed into the middle of the chamber, and then the pads are on each end of the chamber, and both of those tubes, both of those outlets, I mean, you have more surface area to filter it that way. Both of them feed to the outlet. So, as Tasty's saying, if one's a fine and one's a coarse, the majority of the liquid's going to go through the coarse.
Well, imagine it like a pizza, right? The liquid is being fed in through the side of the crust. Mm-hmm. That's where the liquid's going in. It's not going through the center of the pizza, the middle of the pizza where it's cut. It's going through the side of the crust, and it's traveling out the other opposite side of the pizza.
Well, towards the outside.
The filter pads are on either side, and you're traveling between the two. So, and those are pressed together by the plastic housing.
There's the space. That's where the beer, the beer under pressure develops. And then
it's essentially two large pad circles, so you get more filtration area. You're not feeding the beer through them in series.
No.
They're in parallel.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. I guess the bottom line would be if you use a 5 and a 3, you're going to get a 4-micron filtration, I guess. But you're going to have particles as big as that go through the 5. So you're really not going to have any 4. You're going to have basically a blend of two different beer.
Right.
Filters.
And one thing about these filters is they're rated like this will filter out 97% of 5-micron particles. So you will get a certain percentage going through. Right. Certain things they'll go by. They'll go through on their sides maybe, or there's just a certain way. And the filter material is not super precision. So there may be some larger gaps in there. And that's why it's not an exact perfect nothing.
No, it's not getting everything at all. No, in fact, like when I finish a keg of beer that I had filtered, there's sediment in the bottom. It's just not enough that you would if you shook up the keg during some part of the dispensing of it, you wouldn't even notice. It would still be clear beer, but there is sediment in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Other questions were some clarifications, Tasty. This filtering is done pre-carbonation.
Yes, always pre-carbonation. I mean, the canister filters. I think they hold enough pressure. You could, basically develop, a enough pressure to push the beer and keep it in solution. But I really don't recommend that. I think you're going to. It's a lot of it's going to come out of suspension. You're going to be, stripping.
Well, and even
proteins.
while you can, if you can keep, if your pressure you're pushing the beer with is higher than what you carbonated it with, well, it'll stay in solution until it gets to the other side.
Yeah,
if you're bleeding off pressure off of the incoming tank. It's gonna bubble and foam there as you release pressure.
Yeah,
so it's just probably not worth it unless you really can have some strict control over that.
Right. I mean, it can be done. Basically, when you're doing a pressure filter, it's a closed system, right? That is basically if you get the source keg at a higher point of gravity than the target keg, you basically equalize the pressure, right? Mm-hmm. And then you just let a little bit off the target keg and then close it back up and let gravity be the differential between the two. Mm-hmm. Then that is the only way you could attempt to do
tends to go much slower.
It goes much slower.
But you could probably do that unattended and go watch Lost.
Yes, because it's a close. Yeah, right, exactly.
There you are.
I like that. Okay, another question that a listener had is not really about filtering. He wants to know what we think about cold crashing for clarifying. So just real quickly, after fermentation, do you guys cold crash? Is it an effective way to...
Yeah, I just put the beer in a keg and stick it in the fridge in the 30s.
Yeah, absolutely.
And walk away from it.
It's a good way to get your polyphenols to settle out and your get the haze to coalesce and drop out.
Okay. And then the most important for you, Tasty, Death Rider in the chat room would like you to bring your sheet to the Doe's meeting at the next meeting so that he can look at it.
All right, I'll bring it.
There you go. A message delivered now that I'm your secretary.
Yeah, right.
That's it, guys. It's all you.
All right. So did you cover all the tips that you had?
Let me think. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, definitely my tips include the water detector alarm. That's an important part of any open transfer. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, the reason why you want to filter is, clarity and serving beer without a lot of muck in the bottom. If you want to transport your beer, that certainly makes it better, and it can accelerate conditioning in removing polyphenols and yeast that can give it kind of a rough flavor, and kind of accelerate things instead of waiting 2 months for all that stuff to settle out. You can have it done in 2 days, and
But like we noted earlier in the show, filtering does not take care of yeast function in the beer, cleaning up acetaldehyde or diacetyl,
or DMS or anything like that.
Right.
You need to have proper fermentation in order to do that, and that's the step one. But if you got that, then this can help get things ready a little quicker. It does remove some flavor and aroma compounds from the beer, but you can make up with that by adjusting your recipe, just like you would for water or equipment size or anything like that. And what you need as far as equipment goes, you got to have a kegging system, and you can go with one of these plate filters or a cartridge filter. Essentially, you chill the beer down nice and cold, let it settle for a week to get rid of the bulk of stuff, and then push it through the equipment with first run sanitizer through it, then blow some CO2 through it to drive out the sanitizer, then run your beer through under a few psi of pressure.
5 to 10.
Keep an eye on it, and whatever the equipment that you buy says, follow those instructions, of course. Run the first little bit of beer out, throw that away, and then the rest goes right into your receiving keg. Keep an eye on it. Maybe put a monitor on it, and if you're gonna be out of the room, so you don't come back to cry to a bunch of lost beer.
Sad thing.
Yeah, I think that's great education on filtering. I think
good show.
I think now that I've heard all that, I don't know.
Probably won't.
Probably won't. I actually filtered some ciders and did well with ciders in the second round, and I think filtering had a big part of it.
You always do well in cider, I've heard.
Yeah. I like being in cider. Yeah, absolutely. I know JP enjoys that as well very much.
Is that how you hurt your back?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
yes, absolutely. Ciders.
Yes.
So coming up next is the big Q&A show where, live, just ask us your questions. We'll answer them best we can. We've got a lot of experts here in the room, and we'll knock those out of the park.
Q&A. Oh, I misunderstood you.
No, Q&A.
Okay, darn.
And please visit our sponsors, morebeer.com, Downtown Joe's, also in Napa's, and visit the Brewing Network store. Pick yourself up some BN Army gear. Take that down to Downtown Joe's. Get yourself a discount on beer. Good stuff.
Yum.
Until then, brew strong.
Brew strong, everybody.